The door slammed shut, and the sound echoed through our empty house like a gunshot. I stood frozen in the kitchen, the divorce papers trembling in my hands, my wedding ring glinting under the harsh fluorescent light. Mark, my husband of 10 years, had just walked out, his suitcase packed, his eyes cold, chasing a woman who promised him a life I could never give. I sank to the floor, the linoleum cold against my knees. We'd built a life together, modest but ours. 2 kids, a mortgage, late-night talks about dreams we'd shelved for practicality. But then came Vanessa, the rich woman who'd swept into his life at some corporate gala. She was all glamour. Designer dresses, a penthouse, a laugh that sparkled like champagne. Mark had been dazzled. And I, Sarah, the high school sweetheart who'd stuck by him through lean years, was suddenly invisible. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. I'd seen the signs, late nights, hushed phone calls, the way he'd started dressing sharper, like he was auditioning for a life that wasn't ours. But I'd trusted him. I'd believed in us. Now, alone in our half-empty house, I felt like a fool. The kids, Emma and Liam, were at my sister's, spared from witnessing their father's exit. I didn't know how to tell them their dad had chosen a fantasy over them. I wiped my tears and stood, the divorce papers crumpling in my fist. Vanessa might have had money, but I had something she didn't: resilience. I'd survived losing my parents young, scraping by on scholarships, and building a family from nothing. This wasn't the end. It was the start of something I'd have to fight for. I didn't know what, but I'd find it. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, coffee gone cold, staring at my laptop. Mark's social media was a gallery of his new life. Vanessa's arm around him at some rooftop bar, her diamond earrings catching the city lights. I wanted to hate her, but I was too tired. Instead, I called my best friend, Rachel, who showed up with wine and a plan. "You're not just going to survive this, Sarah," she said, her voice fierce. "You're going to thrive. Let him chase his mirage. We'll rebuild you." Rachel dragged me to a lawyer the next day. Karen, a sharp woman with a no-nonsense bob, laid out my options. "Mark's entitled to half the house, but you've got primary custody of the kids unless he fights for it," she said. "He's not thinking straight right now. Use that." I nodded, my mind racing. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. But I wanted security for Emma and Liam. Karen suggested I start digging into our finances, just in case Mark tried to pull anything shady. "Men like him," she said, "they get sloppy when they're distracted." I spent nights poring over bank statements, credit card bills, anything I could find. Mark had always handled the big-picture finances, and I trusted him. Big mistake. I found charges I didn't recognize: hotels, restaurants, a jewelry store. My stomach churned. Had he been spending our money on her? I printed everything, my hands shaking with anger and purpose. If Mark thought he could walk away clean, he was wrong. A week later, I got a call from Emma's school. She'd been acting out, throwing tantrums, asking why Daddy wasn't home. I drove to pick her up, my heart breaking as she clung to me, her small face buried in my shoulder. "Does Daddy not love us anymore?" she whispered. I held her tight, lying through my teeth. "He loves you, sweetie. He's just lost right now." Liam, quieter at 7, just stared out the car window, his silence louder than Emma's tears. That night, I made a vow. I'd protect my kids, no matter what. Mark could have his fling, but I'd make sure we came out stronger. I started small, taking on extra freelance graphic design work, cutting expenses, leaning on Rachel and my sister for support. I wasn't just fighting for me. I was fighting for Emma and Liam, for the life they deserved. But deep down, a question gnawed at me. What was Vanessa's game? Nobody was that perfect. Nobody. The weeks blurred into a haze of survival. I juggled work, kids, and the gaping hole Mark left behind. Every night, I'd tuck Emma and Liam into bed, their questions about their father slicing through me like a blade. But I kept moving, fueled by a stubborn spark that refused to let me break. Rachel, ever the detective, started digging into Vanessa. "Something's off about her," she said one evening. Her laptop opened to a dizzying array of tabs. "Nobody's that rich without a catch." She'd found Vanessa's name on some high society blogs, all gushing about her empire, a chain of boutique fitness studios and a skincare line. But Rachel's gut told her there was more. "Let me do some sleuthing," she said, her eyes glinting with mischief. I didn't have the energy to play Nancy Drew, but I gave her the green light. Meanwhile, I focused on keeping our lives together. My freelance gigs were picking up, and I'd started a side hustle designing logos for small businesses. It wasn't Vanessa's penthouse money, but it paid the bills. The kids were my anchor. Emma's crayon drawings taped to the fridge, Liam's quiet hugs when he thought I wasn't looking. They kept me grounded. Then Rachel called, her voice electric. "Sarah, you're not going to believe this." She'd sweet-talked a contact at a financial firm who owed her a favor. Vanessa's empire? A house of cards. Her fitness studios were bleeding money. Her skincare line was tangled in lawsuits, and her wealth was propped up by loans she couldn't repay. "She's drowning in debt," Rachel said. "Mark doesn't know what he's walked into." I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I felt a strange pity. Mark had thrown away our family for a lie. I wondered if he'd even noticed the cracks in Vanessa's facade. Part of me wanted to confront him, to shove the truth in his face. But Karen's advice echoed, "Wait, let him dig his own grave." Life kept throwing punches. Emma got sick, a bad flu that kept her home for a week. I worked from her bedside, laptop balanced on my knees, her small hand clutching mine. One night, as I read her a bedtime story, she looked up at me. "Mommy, are we going to be okay without Daddy?" Her voice was so small it broke me. I kissed her forehead, promising, "We're going to be more than okay, baby. We're going to be unstoppable." But doubt crept in. What if Mark fought for custody? What if Vanessa's money, fake or not, gave him leverage? I called Karen, who suggested hiring a private investigator to dig deeper into Vanessa's finances. "If she's hiding something, we'll find it," Karen said. "And if Mark's tied up in her mess, it'll weaken his case." The investigator, a gruff man named Tom, didn't come cheap, but Rachel chipped in, calling it an investment in justice. Tom uncovered more dirt. Vanessa had a history of failed ventures, each propped up by new investors or loans before collapsing. Her current lifestyle was a performance, funded by maxed-out credit lines and shady deals. Mark, it seemed, was just another prop in her show. I started noticing changes in Mark, too. His social media posts grew less frequent, his smiles tighter. One night he called out of the blue, his voice shaky. "Sarah, can we talk?" he said. "Just about the kids." I agreed to meet at a coffee shop, my heart pounding. Was he coming to his senses, or was this another game? When I saw him, I barely recognized the man I'd married. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I miss Emma and Liam," he said, staring into his coffee. "Vanessa's, it's not what I thought." I wanted to scream, to ask how he could be so blind, but I stayed calm. "You made your choice, Mark," I said. "Now you live with it." Driving home, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. Mark was unraveling, but I wasn't. I was building something, maybe not a penthouse, but a life. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Vanessa's house of cards was crumbling, and Mark was caught in the wreckage. But I wasn't done fighting, not by a long shot. The coffee shop meeting lingered in my mind like a bad dream. Mark's hollow eyes, his vague apologies. They didn't erase the pain, but they confirmed what I'd suspected. His new life was falling apart. I wanted to feel triumphant, but all I felt was a heavy ache for the man I used to love, now lost in his own bad choices. Back home, I threw myself into work. My freelance business was growing, and I'd landed a contract with a local startup that needed a full branding overhaul. The money was good, but the real reward was the confidence it gave me. I was providing for my kids, proving I didn't need Mark or his mistress's money to survive. Still, every time I tucked Emma and Liam into bed, their questions about their father stabbed at me. "When's Daddy coming home?" Liam asked one night, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't have an answer. Rachel kept me updated on Vanessa's downfall. Tom, the investigator, had found court filings. Creditors were circling, and Vanessa's penthouse was at risk of foreclosure. "She's been dodging lawsuits for years," Rachel said, scrolling through documents on her phone. "Mark's probably freaking out." I nodded, but part of me wondered, would he come back? And if he did, could I ever forgive him? The answer came sooner than I expected. One rainy evening, Mark showed up at the house, soaked and unshaven. "Sarah, I messed up," he said, his voice breaking. "Vanessa, she's not who I thought. She's broke, Sarah. Worse than broke." I didn't know. He looked at me like I could fix him, like I was still his safe harbor. I wanted to slam the door, but the kids were asleep upstairs, and I didn't want to wake them. "Get inside," I said, my voice cold. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, and spilled everything. Vanessa had promised him a life of luxury, but it was all a lie. Her businesses were failing, her debts were crushing, and she'd been using him, his name, his credit, to prop up her schemes. "She's got nothing," he said, "and now I've got nothing." I felt a storm of emotions. Anger, pity, disgust. "You left us for nothing," I said, my voice steady despite the tears burning my eyes. "You chose her over your own kids." He flinched, but I wasn't done. "You don't get to just crawl back because your fantasy fell apart. What about Emma? Liam? They cry for you every night, Mark," he begged, tears streaming down his face. "I'll make it right, Sarah. I'll do anything." But I wasn't the same woman he'd left. I'd learned to stand on my own, to fight for my family. "You can see the kids," I said. "But us? That's over." I handed him a blanket and pointed to the couch. He could stay the night, but only for the kids' sake. The next morning, Emma ran to him, her joy breaking my heart. Liam was more cautious, watching from the doorway. Mark tried to play the doting dad, but I saw the strain in his smile. After breakfast, I pulled him aside. "If you want to be in their lives, you prove it," I said. "No more games." He nodded, but I didn't trust him, not yet. I called Karen to update her. "He's back, but I'm not taking him in," I said. She advised me to document everything, his visits, his promises. "If he's tied to Vanessa's financial mess, it could affect custody," she said. "Keep your guard up." I agreed, but a part of me wondered if Mark could change. Could he be the father my kids needed, even if he'd never be my husband again? That night, I sat at my desk, the house quiet except for the rain tapping the windows. I opened my laptop and started writing. A journal, a letter to myself, anything to make sense of the chaos. I wrote about the pain, the betrayal, but also the strength I'd found. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding piece by piece, for me and my kids. And no matter what Mark did next, I'd be ready. Mark's return didn't magically fix anything. The kids were thrilled to see him, but I saw the cracks in his facade. He was trying, showing up for Emma's soccer practice, helping Liam with homework, but his eyes carried a haunted look, like he was running from something bigger than himself. I kept my distance, watching, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Rachel and I met for coffee, and she dropped a bombshell. Tom had uncovered more on Vanessa. She'd been named in a fraud investigation. "She's been kiting checks, Sarah," Rachel said, her voice low, "using fake investor money to keep her businesses afloat. Mark's name is on some of those accounts." My stomach dropped. If Mark was tangled in her schemes, it could ruin him and drag the kids down with him. I confronted Mark that night after the kids were asleep. "What did you sign with Vanessa?" I demanded, shoving Tom's report in his face. He paled, stammering. "It was just business stuff. Loans, investments." She said it was temporary. I wanted to scream. He'd tied our family's future to a sinking ship. You need to come clean, I said. To me, to a lawyer, to everyone. Or you're out of the kids' lives for good. He broke down, admitting he'd co-signed loans for Vanessa, thinking her wealth would cover them. Now, with her empire collapsing, he was on the hook for thousands. I thought I was building a future for us, he said, his voice hollow. I laughed bitterly. You built a cage, Mark, and you locked yourself in it. I called Karen the next day, and she was blunt. If he's linked to fraud, it could tank his credibility in court. Protect your assets now. We froze our joint accounts, and I moved what little savings we had into a new account in my name. Felt like betrayal, cutting him off, but I had to think of Emma and Liam. They deserved stability, not their father's wreckage. Mark started sleeping on the couch, a temporary arrangement for the kids' sake. Emma clung to him, but Liam grew more distant, his trust fractured. I tried to keep things normal, school runs, bedtime stories, but the tension was suffocating. One night, Liam caught me crying in the kitchen. Mom, is Dad gonna ruin everything? He asked. I hugged him tight. Not if I can help it, buddy. I threw myself into work, landing another big client. The money gave me breathing room, but the stress was relentless. Rachel suggested therapy, and I started seeing a counselor, Dr. Ellis, who helped me process the anger and grief. You're not just fighting for your kids, she said. You're fighting for yourself. Don't forget that. Her words stuck with me, a reminder that I was more than Mark's ex-wife or the kids' mom. I was Sarah, and I was enough. Meanwhile, Vanessa's world kept unraveling. News articles popped up about her failed businesses. Her name splashed across headlines. I saw her once, outside a courthouse, her designer dress looking out of place amid the chaos. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw fear in her face. Not triumph, not arrogance, fear. It didn't make me hate her less, but it made her human. Mark started attending therapy, too, at my insistence. He wanted to be better, he said, for the kids. I didn't trust his promises, but I let him try. One evening, he sat me down. I'm going to fix this, Sarah. I'm meeting with a lawyer to untangle myself from Vanessa's mess. I nodded, skeptical but hopeful. Maybe he could salvage something, not for us, but for Emma and Liam. As I tucked the kids into bed that night, Emma whispered, Is Daddy staying? I kissed her forehead. He's trying, sweetie. We all are. But in my heart, I knew the truth. I was done waiting for Mark to save us. I was saving myself, and I'd carry my kids with me no matter what came next. The house felt like a pressure cooker. Mark's presence a constant reminder of the life we'd lost. He was trying, showing up for the kids, meeting with his lawyer, but trust was a ghost between us. Every time I looked at him, I saw Vanessa's shadow, her lies tangled with his mistakes. Tom's reports kept coming, each one worse than the last. Vanessa's fraud case was escalating. Investigators were closing in, and Mark's name kept popping up in documents. He's not a primary target, Tom said, but he's in deep enough to get burned. I felt a twisted relief. If Mark went down with her, it might simplify custody, but it would crush Emma and Liam. I didn't want that, no matter how much I hated him. I focused on the kids, keeping their routine steady. Emma's soccer games became my sanctuary, cheering her on as she darted across the field. Liam started opening up, drawing pictures of our family. Me, him, Emma, and sometimes Mark, but always with a question mark over his face. He's trying, Mom, Liam said one night, but I don't know if I believe him. I hugged him, my heart aching. You don't have to yet, I said. Just let him show you. Work was my lifeline. The startup contract turned into a full-time offer, with a salary that meant I could pay off the mortgage faster. I accepted, feeling a surge of pride. I wasn't just surviving, I was building something real. Rachel threw a small celebration at her place, toasting to Sarah's empire. Felt good to laugh, to feel like myself again. But Mark's mess kept intruding. His lawyer called me, warning that Vanessa's creditors were targeting him for repayment. He co-signed loans worth over $200,000, the lawyer said. If he can't pay, they'll come after his assets. I froze. Our house was still in both our names. If they came for him, they could take everything I'd fought for. I hung up, panic clawing at me. I confronted Mark that night. How could you be so stupid? I yelled, keeping my voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. He looked defeated, his shoulders slumped. I thought she was the answer, Sarah. I was wrong. I wanted to scream, but instead, I called Karen. She worked fast, filing paperwork to protect the house and my finances. You're doing everything right, she said. Stay strong. The next blow came from the news. Vanessa had fled. Her penthouse was empty, her accounts frozen. Mark was a wreck, pacing the living room, muttering about how she'd used him. She said she loved me, he said, almost to himself. I didn't respond. His pain wasn't my responsibility anymore. Dr. Ellis helped me process the chaos. You're carrying too much, she said. Let go of what's not yours. I started setting boundaries with Mark. No more late-night confessions, no more leaning on me. He could stay for the kids, but I wasn't his wife anymore. Felt liberating, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. One evening, Emma came to me with a drawing. A family. But this time, it was just me, her, and Liam, smiling under a bright sun. This is us now, she said. I hugged her, tears in my eyes. They were healing, and so was I. Mark's lawyer called again, saying he'd struck a deal to settle some of the debt, but it would cost him everything he had left. I didn't care. My focus was on my kids, my work, my life. As I sat at my desk that night, I wrote in my journal, I'm not defined by Mark's mistakes. I'm defined by what I build from here. The words felt like a promise, one I was determined to keep. Vanessa was gone, Mark was floundering, but I was standing tall. And I wasn't done yet. Vanessa's disappearance left a void, but not the kind I'd expected. The news cycle moved on, but Mark was still trapped in her fallout. He'd settled some of the debts, selling his car and draining his savings, but the legal battles loomed. I kept my distance, focusing on my kids and my new job, but his presence in the house was a constant tightrope walk. Emma and Liam were adjusting, but it wasn't easy. Emma started asking if Daddy would stay forever, and Liam's drawings grew darker, full of stormy skies. I leaned on Dr. Ellis, who suggested family therapy for the kids. They need a safe space to process this, she said. I enrolled them, and slowly they started opening up about their fears. It broke my heart, but it also gave me purpose. I couldn't fix Mark, but I could be their rock. My job was a bright spot. The startup loved my work, and I was leading a team now, mentoring younger designers. The pay was enough to start a college fund for the kids, and I felt a pride I hadn't known in years. Rachel called it my glow up, and we laughed over wine, but inside, I was still battling fear. What if Mark's legal mess dragged us down? What if he tried to come back for good? One night, Mark sat me down. I'm moving out, he said. I got a small apartment. I need to figure myself out, but I want to stay in the kids' lives. I nodded, relief mixing with sadness. It was the right move, but it meant the kids would face another change. I agreed to a visitation schedule, but I made it clear, no more surprises, Mark. They deserve better. The kids took it hard. Emma cried, clinging to him as he packed his things. Liam just watched, his silence louder than ever. I held them both that night, promising we'd be okay. We're a team, I said, and they nodded, their small hands in mine. After Mark left, the house felt lighter, like we could finally breathe. Karen called with good news. The house was fully in my name now, safe from Mark's creditors. You're untouchable, she said, and I smiled for the first time in weeks. I celebrated by taking the kids to their favorite ice cream shop, watching them laugh as chocolate dripped down their chins. It was a small moment, but it felt like a victory. Rachel kept tabs on Vanessa's case. She'd been spotted in another state, dodging investigators. She's running out of moves, Rachel said. I didn't care anymore. Vanessa was Mark's mistake, not mine. I was focused on my future, planning a vacation for the kids, saving for a new car, dreaming of a life that was mine. Mark kept his word, showing up for visits, taking the kids to the park, calling every night. He was trying, and I saw glimpses of the man I'd loved. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Dr. Ellis helped me let go of the anger, not for Mark, but for me. Forgiveness isn't about him, she said. It's about freeing yourself. I wasn't there yet, but I was closer. One evening, I found Liam drawing again. A picture of me, him, and Emma, standing strong under a clear sky. "No more storms," he said, and I hugged him, tears in my eyes. We were healing slowly but surely. I looked at my reflection in the window, seeing a woman who'd fought and won. Not against Mark or Vanessa, but for herself. As I tucked the kids into bed, Emma whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mommy." My heart swelled. This was my life now, messy, hard, but mine. And I was ready for whatever came next. The months that followed were a quiet kind of triumph. The house was ours, the kids were settling into a new rhythm, and I was thriving at work. Mark's visits were consistent, and though I'd never trust him fully, I saw him trying to be the father Emma and Liam needed. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough for now. Family therapy helped the kids find their voices. Emma started talking about her feelings, her drawings full of bright colors again. Liam opened up about his anger, his trust slowly rebuilding. "Dad's different now," he told me one day, and I nodded, letting him hold on to that hope. I didn't need to tear Mark down to build my kids up. My job became my passion. I was promoted to creative director, leading projects that felt like art, not just work. The startup was growing, and so was I. I started saving for a dream. A small cabin by a lake, a place for me and the kids to make new memories. Rachel called it my victory lap, and we laughed, but it felt true. I'd come through the fire and found myself stronger. Mark's legal battles dragged on, but they didn't touch us. He'd settled most of the debts, taking on extra work to cover the rest. One night he called, his voice steady for the first time in months. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said. "Not just for Vanessa, but for everything. You deserved better." I listened, my heart quiet. "I know," I said, "but I'm okay now." And I meant it. Vanessa's name faded from the headlines. Rumors said she'd settled with creditors, trading her penthouse for a quieter life. I didn't care. She was a chapter in someone else's story now. My story was about Emma's soccer goals, Liam's shy smiles, the way my team cheered when we landed a big client. It was about me standing tall. One weekend, I took the kids to the park, watching them run through the grass, their laughter filling the air. Mark joined us, keeping his distance but smiling as Emma showed off her cartwheels. For a moment, we felt like a family, not the one we'd been, but something new. I didn't need him back, but I could let him be part of this, for them. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I built this life. Not Mark, not Vanessa, me." I looked at the words, feeling their weight. Dr. Ellis had been right. Forgiveness wasn't about Mark. It was about letting go of the pain so I could hold on to the joy. I wasn't there yet, but I was close. The kids slept soundly, their faces peaceful. I stood in the doorway, watching them, my heart full. We'd faced betrayal, loss, and uncertainty, but we'd come through. I'd come through. I wasn't just the woman Mark left. I was Sarah, the mother, the creator, the survivor. And this was only the beginning. As I closed the journal, I smiled. The future was mine to shape, and I was ready. For the kids, for myself, for the life we'd build together. No more looking back, only forward to the light.